What's up, guys? So this video is going to be on the different mechanisms, locking mechanisms of pocket knives. From kind of most common to not so common, I guess, maybe. But probably the most common type of lock you're going to find on a knife is going to be your liner lock. So the liner is going to be this little silver piece. It's on, usually, or well, actually always, for a liner lock. Most pocket knives have two liners. So on the inside of the scales, or the handles, is a piece of steel. That piece of steel is going to be milled out in most knives so that they're lighter weight. On a liner lock knife, sometimes they're not milled, but they are going to be cut on one side so that the liner can bend and lock into where the tang of the blade is. And to unlock, you move that to the side, and that knife should fall. But you'll hear when I open it, that click, that liner is in place. They're nice and easy to use. They're pretty versatile. They're reliable. However, they're not a hard use lock. Any knife that you were going to, for whatever reason, especially a folder, have any sort of spine pressure, it did it, but it locked itself back in place. You can, with enough inertia, jolt that lock out of place to where that knife can close on you. So keep that in mind. They are not the strongest lock, but they are reliable, and they tend to come on cheaper, more everyday carry type knives. And they're nice for a one-hand operation, whether it's right-handed, left-handed. They're not a bad lock. Just understand the pros and the cons with them and the possible downfalls to that system. It's basically a step above a slip joint, being a knife that does not have a lock. Most of my knives, so my two Enduras and my two Buck knives, are lock back. Meaning, so the butts are a full lock back, meaning that the lock is at the far rear, the heel of the knife. You have to depress that. That locking bar will move out of the way. Okay. Press that. That locking bar moves. It allows you to shut the knife. This is a pretty sturdy lock because as long as you have pressure on the back of the knife, it's pretty hard to get this to really get out of the way for that blade to fall. Then you have a mid lock back, like on these Spyderco Enduras. Same idea. You press down, that bar will move, the blade will fall. I tend to like these a little bit better because they're an easier spot to hit. They allow one hand operation of that knife a little easier, because these true lot bat knives, I kind of have to come back here, press it. Maybe it'll fall. Other times, if I have to use one hand, I will press it against something, and then shut it. Little more tricky. But these mid-back lots, as long as you kind of keep your finger up front, that blade's gonna just fall on the dull part to your finger, and then you shut it. I would consider these to be one of the stronger folding lock mechanisms, because you have on the bar here, you have a tooth. That tooth goes into that groove, and I snap. Very little side to side and virtually no up and down play. Even on one of these Spydercos, which technically you have a smaller locking bar, but you still have the same hook to notch. No side to side and very slight up and down play. Now we move into a compression lock, which is kind of a reverse liner lock, because it's still utilizing the liner. You can see that. But instead of having to come to the bottom edge of the knife, move it over and shut the knife, your fingers can stay out of the way and just pinch that lock. This is a fairly old knife, but you can pinch that lock and shut the knife. Good click. Very little side to side and no up and down. It's a very solid lockup. I would put that on par with maybe a step below a lot back. It's still a very strong knife. Unless you're truly bearing down on this thing, getting that to move out of the way, it'd be pretty tough, and even doing the spine whack does not have the same effect as that. It's funny how physics works. The SOG, they don't make anymore, but has a piston lock. So this is a spring, it's a very stiff spring that is pushing this locking bar forward into that groove in the tine of the blade. So this is a very sturdy lock. I would put this lock as tough as one of these lot bats, if not maybe slightly tougher, because you are having the spring assist in keeping that bar in that notch. And for me to actually shut this is not a one-handed knife. I have to really pull down and then shut the knife. This automatic, the spring broke on it, so it don't really work anymore, but flick it out. These button locks, or plunge locks, fit into a hole in the blade, or a cutout in the blade. Now, whether or not this will show up on the camera, I don't know. But you got that little recess there. That, as the blade opens, that pops in place. And then with these, you have a little safety. Pop that in place. You can't actuate the button. This is pretty sturdy, even though there's a little bit of play. This is a pretty sturdy knife. And then to shut it, you would press the lock. And currently, because there's no spring left in the lock, well, it just kind of shuts. But if the spring on the button was still in play, being automatic, it would stay open. You would have to press the button and then shut the knife. So those are the locking mechanisms for most knives. The only knife I don't have on the table that is currently in my work bag is a Benchmade Griptilian, which has the Axis lock, which is now available to all these different companies to make knives with. The crossbar lock, Axis lock, whatever you want to call it. Strong lock, easy to use, ambidextrous. I love it. Really, you can't go wrong with any of these. It depends on your personal use. If you're just looking for a kind of a cheaper utility knife, a liner lock do you just fine. I would recommend Kershaw's. I've always had good luck with them. But for the money, the steels they use, they make some American made. I would kind of lean towards the Kershaw's. A step above, which, and honestly, for an American made knife, for about the same price, if not a little bit cheaper than a lot of the Kershaw's, for 20 or 30 bucks, you can get a nice American made utility knife that's a lot back. I tend to like this 112 a little bit more than the 110. A little easier to open, fits my hand better. But for the price, they're US made, steel quality. They're a fantastic little option. And then you can get into, you know, the realm of $100 to $200 knives. These are all, well, the Spyderco and this Gerber, these are American made. These two are Japanese made. But most part, a nicer steel. Nicer, ooh, hello. I almost cut myself. Nicer steel. Usually nicer materials. A more sturdy lock, typically. And a lot more ambidextrously friendly.